Hey friends, Camaro Theologian here. I want to talk to you about what is the witness of the Spirit. Now, the reason why I want to talk to you about this is because oftentimes people refer to the witness of the Spirit as some kind of spiritual, ethereal, one-to-one direct contact that you have with God that is kind of outside of anything that's normal in this world. Something that you have this feeling, this deep down feeling, this deep down assurance, possibly a spiritual assurance that you're having, and God's kind of witnessing to you through the Holy Spirit, coming from Romans chapter 8, where you cry, Abba, Father, that you know that you have the Spirit of God because of this. Now, the one thing I have to admit is that I've never really had anything that is ethereal. I've never really had any sense of the divine that goes beyond the normal things of life. I think God's provided enough within the normal life that is a sense of God. I mean, everything is a sense of God. But this is a special one, supposedly, that brings you into contact with the Holy Spirit, and where the Holy Spirit is telling you, hey, Michael, you are a child of God. You can be assured of that. Now, I know many people who have had this and then maybe lost it. And then they go into some type of crisis of faith where they're saying, where did it go? Did I lose my salvation? Was I never saved? And they rely upon this ethereal contact with God in order to establish their relationship with Him. I had a guy call me not too long ago and said, I've always had the Spirit of God give me a sense of His presence. I always knew that He was there. And this lasted my entire life, my entire Christian life. And then one morning I woke up and it was gone. And he was in a panic mode, and he was very scared and thinking that he wasn't a Christian, and he doubting everything about God. Now, I looked at this and I said, well, okay, it's one of two things. Maybe God is trying to relate to you in a different way. He's related to you for a long time emotionally, and He's taken that away because He wants you to experience Him in a different way, in a different kind of personality engagement, and a different side of your personality. This is very common. I mean, God does do this, where things are going a certain way, prayers are being answered, and then suddenly they're not in the way that they used to be. And then you interpret it in such a way that because things are taken away, and you begin to doubt everything you believed before. Now, one thing about Romans chapter 8, it's, you've heard this many times, and I've said this many times, is that you always have to look at the context and read the entire thing. And so whenever you're looking at this passage on the witness of the Spirit, it's really interesting because the next phrase that Paul says is, in the same way, all of creation groans in travail, wanting to be released from what the fall has done to creation. And basically saying the creation itself knows that it's not what it's meant to be, calling upon the restoration of all things, calling upon the sons of God to be revealed, God to have a culmination of the judgment and then the new heavens and the new earth, going back to what it was supposed to be in Garden of Eden type conditions. And in some sense, the creation knows that it's not supposed to be this way. I think it's just illustrative Paul is using to the same way in which we witness God and groan and look for His signs and presence and restoration. Now, if it really is in the same way as us crying Abba, Father, then in some sense the creation is crying Abba, Father. Well, how does it do that? Well, I think what is going on here is not some ethereal witness that you have, that it's kind of this new one-to-one correspondence that you have with Holy Spirit through your spirit. It is this groaning that you also have, this groaning from the sin-fallen world, this groaning wanting things to be restored, this groaning that, man, it's just all fallen apart. And even whenever you don't feel God's presence anymore and you desire it so greatly, that is part of it. It is part of it because we are absent from God in some way. I know that God's presence is with us, but we are waiting for the final redemption of things. We're waiting for Christ to come back. When the angels took Jesus up to heaven in Acts chapter 1, they said, "Why do you stare, men of Galilee, up into the sky? This same Jesus that was taken away from you will come back." But he was taken away from us. The presence of God, in a very real sense, has gone whenever Jesus left and whenever the fall happened and the separation happened, and things will be restored. And so for you and I to groan and want more, for you and I to groan and want things to be the way they're supposed to be, and even when you groan, and please don't take this the wrong way, even whenever you groan and you just want to die, because you know it'll be better. You know, Paul says this, I wish I could go on to be with Jesus. That would be much better than now. But I have to stay. I have to stay for you all's sake. Well, that's the same thing that we do. And whenever you groan and desire God's presence, whenever you groan and desire the restoration, whenever you groan and desire the absence of sin, whenever you groan and you desire for the trials and the difficulties all to cease, that is the witness of the Spirit. I mean, who else groans for that? The unbelievers don't sit around and groan for that. They groan in a whole different way, but it's at least the initial part is similar, but what they know is coming is different. And so their groaning is not for something better, because they don't believe that something better can come outside of their own ingenuity. But we groan because we know what the problem is. We groan because we know we're in a sin-infected world. And so if you don't feel like you have the witness of the Spirit, that witnesses to your spirit that you are a child of God, if you have ever groaned in this way, then you have. Then that is exactly what the witness of the Spirit is. So take comfort in that. I think I don't think I've ever met any Christian who hasn't groaned very deeply for the presence of the restoration of all things. So that is the witness of the Spirit. I believe, I'm not 100% positive of this because I know so many people look at it differently, but it's the only thing I can do whenever I look at the entire context of Romans chapter 8 and I see what Paul says whenever he says, in the same way the creation groans. So look at that. Look and see what way the creation groans, and I think you might agree with me.